Welcome to another episode of Becoming a TechnoWizard. Man, it's so easy to just kind of fall back to lose consistency on things for me. Um, I don't know why. That's something I've been trying to, get a hold of, get a handle of, and I don't know. Something I'm figuring out. Like I can do work, I can, focus on things, but I don't know. Sometimes it's just hard to stick to a routine, you know, and I don't know. Just wanted to share that because I feel like it's important to document these sort of things, you know, um, because the journey is that's what the journey is all about. It's not straightforward. It's not easy. Even though it seems simple to put one foot in front of the other, um, oftentimes it's kind of a practice and discipline and consistency, perseverance. All these things, and it's sometimes hard to do that. And sometimes the hardest part is that you don't really know why it's hard. Like you think it should be easy, and you feel bad because you're like, why am I procrastinating? Why am I, you know, not just doing it? Why can't I be more productive? That's my big, like, probably one of my biggest self criticisms is my inability to be consistently productive. I often feel like I'm not just productive enough. I'm not, doing as much as I could be doing, maybe as much as I should be doing to accomplish the sort of goals and ambitions that I want to accomplish. Um, and it's hard. But we just got to keep going, keep moving, reflect, and just I don't know, go from there. So yeah, today I'm going to show you. Um, I've kind of been going backwards, basically, in terms of the projects that I've done in my UX design course so far. And so I spoke about this one a little bit during the first episode, but this is Worldhopper. So the what do you call it? The project brief for the first phase, way back in, like, what was it, October, September, October, around that time, whatever, was like to build no, October, November, I think. Yeah, but basically it was like to basically build a sort of travel app. Um, and I think this applied us with interviews. So we didn't do the interviews, the first interviews at first. We kind of just took notes on the ones that they gave us and kind of had to synthesize that data, those interviews to determine the most the biggest problems that we saw, and to figure out ways to solve those problems. So I created Worldhopper to kind of address some issues I saw in terms of people who travel a lot. And some of those biggest issues was that um, was was the ability to find activities to do that were not just tourist trap activities. Like the type of people the type of target audience were people that wanted to travel and spend time with the locals, who want to feel like a local. You know, um, Let me see what else. I'm trying to remember everything that we researched. I don't know. It was a lot of stuff that we researched, but I think another thing I remember was that they wanted to like when they're looking for places to stay, looking for things to do. They essentially, wanted to keep it real. They didn't want to just stay in tourist traps. Stay in some um, global internationalized hotel or anything like that. They wanted to have a realistic local experience. And so World Hopper is kind of built to, allow a lot of these things. So here we go. And already I have a freaking grammar issue on the first screen. I don't know how I didn't see that after like three iterations. And yeah, this is important. Like in freaking design, especially UX design, you do a lot of iterations. So you have a whole like part of the design thinking process, and I'll go through that in another episode too. Just going through the entire design thinking process. But part of it is like divergent thinking. We divergent ideation, all that stuff. So you take a concept that you're trying to do, that you're trying to find solutions for, and you just create a whole bunch of different ideas for it. I love that part because that's what I do in a regular basis, anyways. You know, for for years, like probably 5, maybe even up to 10 years on and off, I had this thing called 10 ideas a day, where I came up with, try to come up with 10 new ideas every single day. I've done that for a long time. Probably have like, I don't know, over 1,000 written down at least, at the very least. But I only stopped recently because I got really frustrated. I had all these ideas and I wasn't really executing on any of them. So I just felt bad. But anyways, I love that part, divergent thinking. And this iteration, actually, before I go through this, I'll go ahead and show some of the other ones I did. Because a lot of those are already here on Envision. So I think this is my first prototype here. So we have what's called paper prototypes, which is where you actually draw, what you wanted to do. And I haven't put pen to paper in a long time, since like high school when I was in art class. So I was like really kind of freaked out trying to do all this, but I managed it. Still can't draw circles, but whatever. But it was fun to go through this process. So my whole thing, like I said in the very first episode, is like kind of have a magical experience and create designs that are like different, that inspired people, that motivated people, that got them just excited to use the technology. And part of that for me was like doing something that's like different. So I created this sort of 2D 3D sort of um interface. So you would have a globe in the middle, and then if you tap it, it would spin, and these different activities and things to do will come out of it. And these will be like floating around the globe, kind of like satellites or just things floating around like bubbles or whatever in space. So you can select one of these to start. So once you did that, oh yeah, that's one thing. So we had to like bring people through actual login screen, or at least I thought we did. So that's why I had that there. All right. So now the search. So it's just terrible. Can't even read much of this, but just a good search way to be able to narrow down what you want to do. So basically, what that did, you kind of see here, is that they wanted to go to a certain place, and they was researching like, because a lot of the travelers, they research where they want to go, and what's there, what's the local like, what's that place like. And so here, when you search for something, see if I can go back here, you can notate what you want to do, like what you want to learn from, what I want to see. So you can do articles about this place. In this case, is the Rwanda Memorial. You can see videos, audio, all that stuff. So you can select whatever one you want to do. You can select your country or city and all that. But yeah, so once you select that, it narrows down the stuff that you can insight here to those things. My globe is so terrible. Was that even supposed to be a globe? I don't remember. It's terrible. But yeah, you can select one, and then I had this whole idea of like having a interaction where you tap it, where you like kind of hold tap, and it will pop up as long as you're holding it, and if you let go, it'll go away. But during like part of the iterations, part of the testing, it wasn't really as fluid as I would hope to be, and it was hard to like show that animation and just paper prototypes. I would have to like kind of be advanced and like something like Principal, whatever, to know how to do that. And at this point, we didn't know any of those tools. So anyways, I try to like explain it here. You can release it, or drag it out to do the whole thing. Um, and it's another interesting thing too here, is that you can drag like your articles directly into a folder. And so if you're doing a lot of research, you can like hold it and drag it down to a folder, whatever. Of course, that's not really as fluid a mechanism as you would imagine, as I imagined. But I thought it was interesting. So, you would have these folders on the side and your nav bar, and when you select something, they kind of open up, and then you can, throw it in there. Yeah, so you go to an article, tells you a little bit about, the place, whatever. You can see about the author. leave a comment. You can add it to, something that you would want to look at later at another time, and something that would be good for your current itinerary, your trip plans. So if you select that author thing, you can see more about the actual person who wrote that article. And this person would actually be a local at that place. And it will show you, other things that they've written or that they've uploaded, they published to this app. Um, you can see more information about them. And oh yeah, you can tip them as well. I thought that was a very interesting thing because one thing that, you know, it's pretty consistent is that a lot of those local places, the reason why they kind of get overcrowded with with tourist traps really is because the locals aren't really being paid. The locals aren't really being top priority in terms of the business mechanics of tourism. So when a new person comes into their, country, they want to stay in like a usually like a hotel and stuff like that, or have a specific type of experience kind of curated for them. And so, you just have these other people come in and do that, do that, do that job rather than, the actual real experience of the people there. You don't really often talk to somebody who was born there, who lives a normal life there. So I wanted to kind of bring more of a what's the term? I don't know exactly what I want to say here, but I just want to make it easier for locals to make money off of this industry because tourism is a huge, huge industry, right? So I just want to make it easy for them. So if the average person can be like, okay, I can tell you about my place, and so if you like their article, you like their video, whatever, give them a tip, and a small, especially if you're coming from the type of place like America or whatever that are known as first world country, whatever, that currency is worth a lot more there. So if you tip this person just $1, that can go a long way in their home country. And so yeah, I just want to improve all of that here. And you can also directly talk to them and talk to the actual locals there. And we saw that this was an interesting thing. So there was a couple things I wanted to do here. Um, the so this is the thing that my kind of instructor was like, "What? Why would you want to make things public?" And it's because I saw like this chat feature as more of a not just a simple SMS or a simple like one-to-one text messaging system, but something more akin to Slack, more akin to Discord, where you have a community of people that you're talking to. So you could be talking to one person, but it could be more like a channel, rather than a DM, you know, so meaning that if you're talking to that person, say maybe you weren't really asking them anything like, private or anything. You were just asking them, hey, what's the best place to eat around there? And they'll, say, hey, this place is a good place to eat. And it was like, okay, cool. So if you make that public, that this conversation is now available to other people, that are looking for things to do in that area. And so now they can say, oh, that person said, that's a good place to eat. And so it just makes it, I think, more fluid way for that communication of what's makes that local area special. Because when you're communicating with somebody directly, you can kind of drag out. You can talk about more things than you could in an article or video that was made by the local, that the local may not have been thinking about what a traveler would want to see. So when you have that, back and forth communication, you can drag those things, those types of insights out, and you can share them. So yeah, uh, all that to say that it's kind of a little bit of a different messaging system, but still pretty standard. I had these things too, and another interesting thing is this walkie-talkie thing, because a lot of places didn't really have good cell signals or internet and stuff like that. So this would actually use a radio signal to communicate people via like a walkie-talkie type of system. And this was important because another kind of thing that we saw in our interviews was that in some places that they didn't have internet, it really sucked for people because that means they would have to load up their entire itinerary beforehand, and throughout the entire day they would just have to try to stick with the itinerary. They couldn't really update things on the fly because they didn't have internet. They would print it out like back in like early 2000s things when you're going somewhere you print out a map quest rather than having Google Maps live on your phone. And so that also extended into if you had a multiple people. So if you weren't just solo, if you had a travel partner or if you had a whole group and you got separated, if you had no cell signal, then you'll be stuck. You would have to establish a meeting place, to hopefully you all can go back there at that time. And that can be a very scary moment for a lot of travelers. That can be very inconvenient moment and stuff like that. So I just wanted to make ways to make it more possible to communicate with people, on the fly. And so it turns out a lot of phones, especially international phones, or even older phones, it's just weird because it's becoming starting to be phased out with newer ones. But a lot of older phones have, walkie-talkie, or like they have like radio chips in them, and it's just unused most of the time because people in America and places like that use like their car or whatever for their radio. But turns out a lot of our phones have radio chips, and you can just enable it. So I wanted to include that there. But yeah, let me see what else did I have here. Um, Oh yeah, so you can drag individual messages, to these folders. So once again, if you're talking to somebody and say, "Hey, what's the favorite restaurant?" Instead of saving the entire message, you can just save that what they said, their response. Hold it down. Select which ones you want to save. And then take it to that folder that you want to save it in. So, and you can reports too, and this goes for the um, the um, the local as well. So if you just trying to hit on some local and just trying to be I don't know, xenophobic or something, they can report you too. So I wanted to make it easy to do that. So yeah, let's go back here. This is kind of the kind of annoying thing with Envision that can't really go back, and like the hotspot is meant to go back to the last screen you went to. Like you can code this in if it was an actual app, you can code it to go, back to that screen, but not go, to the same screen you just left. So, but here you either have to go back to that screen or back to a specific screen or back to the previous screen in a series, which is not always ideal. Like if you're hopping around the app, like a realistic app would, you don't. Many of those may not apply. So that's why you have that limitation where you go back and you just go back to the same page you just left. So yeah, but we can just hop onto one of these. Oh yeah, back to explore. Let me see what else you can do. I forgot most of this, so sorry. Um, oh yeah, this is basically another way to filter things, I guess. So if you want to see things that you can actually see, which is like sightseeing type of things, you can press that. If it's do, then it's like activities, and eat, it's restaurants. So I thought it was a cool thing to do. So let me see. Then you also had chats. Just talked about that. So once again, I just had the private and public here, and I even have like signal message, so you can see, you know, just if there's good signal or not. You can invite people in the chat. It's another interesting page. This is locals. So if you want, a lot of people want to meet locals, real locals. So I had kind of like a portfolio, a directory of actual locals who were verified locals who lived there for a while, and you would have badges that showed, hey, this person has lived here for X amount of years, or this person is like a, it's like um, a tour guide. So you have these different types of badges here, kind of showing what type of things they know, how long they've been doing this, if they're actually a local there, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is what I was talking about: verified locals, actual locals, or other travelers. So if you want to meet other travelers as well. I think that's the major things there. So now you have your wish list. So here you can put down all the things that you had. And again, I like to explore different types of, interactions. So I kind of had this idea where you would have a typical list view like people like, but I hate lists. It's so boring to me. So I wanted to have like a kind of free form, thing where you have like your kind of icons floating around, of all the different articles or things that you've done, and have the same interaction as as I was mentioning on the first page. So that was one thing I wanted to explore. Kind of the same thing for the travel page, but it just made it a little bit more detailed. So it shows the location that something is at, it shows the time that you would want to go there, and so on and so forth. And you can drag it around to, rearrange things. I think that's the main things there. Oh yeah, so if you want to share whatever you're doing, your itinerary, your articles that you found, anything, you can share that there. Share it to your chat or email it to somebody. If you want to add, insights yourself, you can do that here as well. I think I had a profile as well. Yeah, I have a profile too. So, radio transmitter, location. Yeah. So I was kind of proud of this app, but design is a very humbling experience, and I learned a lot while I was, testing this and while I was iterating on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you those iterations. It's fun to go back over this stuff. Oh, again, I spoke to this a little bit in the first video, but we did style tiles. So style tiles are essentially usually a user interface type of thing, but as UX designers, it's important for us to know, good user interface too. So we kind of, did some style tiles, which showed kind of what high fidelity design we would actually do if this was a finished, polished product. So this is one style tile. Now I had a bunch of different iterations of this. This is kind of like one of the later ones, but it just showed the type of elements that I would use if it was, if I was going for this type of design. And so this one kind of says, hey, if my targeting audience is, if these are the important things for my target audience, efficient, organized, informative, concise, or conscientious, whatever, this is the type of system I would want to give them. And this other one explores a different type of style tile. If they were this type of person, colloquial, off-road, insight, stuff like that, um, then they would explore this type of settings, kind of like a more of a rugged design. Now, of course, this is not really something uh, that's very traditional, and I I learned that you don't want to use browns and oranges and all these kind of weird colors because it kind of throws people off a lot. I still think it's kind of charming, to be honest with you. It's just different. I like that feel. But uh, if it confuses people, you don't want to you don't want to put your ego first. But I learned a lot in building those style tiles, and I think this was one of the first mood board. Oh yeah. So here's how the style tiles started as these different mood boards. We explored these different kind of design um, types. That was the other one. That was the first one I showed you. This one kind of fell off quickly, but I always love futuristic stuff, so I try to kind of bring that in. So if you're a type of traveler that traveled more futuristic kind of cities and places, then that was for you. And again, once again, the kind of off-road type of setting. All right, so that's that there. So then we get into our mid fidelity prototypes, and mid fidelity essentially means um, it's a wireframe. Basically, you built it on like a program like Sketch or Figma or anything like that, and it's just more detailed, but not so detailed that you're kind of thinking about. You don't want to be thinking about like the aesthetics yet. You just want to be thinking about more about the functionality. Like, does the functionality really work here? And this is usually what you're going to be using to test with people, because as good as paper prototypes and low fidelity mock-ups are, they're not really. People get confused. They're like, "Oh, why does this look like that?" You might tell them over and over again, "Hey, this is just something that we drew up real quick to test the app," but it gets distracting for a lot of people, and so you want to build something that looks a little bit more real, um, and they can understand that this is a draft. But at the same time, it's realistic enough for them to want to do that. So it's basically the same thing I showed you before. Some of the main iterations is just making it look more polished. So you got your sign in and all that. I'm not going to go through all this because I want to keep these videos short. Um, yeah, it's not too much different stuff. It's just, more polished. But now we can really go through the high fidelity prototype. Oops. Okay, so that gave you some knowledge on all of that. So now we get into this part. Boom. So interesting thing is that during my test I realized that you didn't have to kind of force people to log in, and that's something we talked about a lot in like the class twos. That is that even if you have a really in-depth app that really needs people's accounts, like you need an account set up to really make use of the app, that doesn't mean that you have to force people to sign in, to make an account the first time they download the app, because that can be a lot of friction for people, and they'll just they just leave. So I, at least what I did here is just had a tutorial that showed people how to use the app as they were using it. Now, ideally, you wouldn't necessarily have to do a tutorial. You can just skip around the app anyways. But again, vision is limited, so I did it kind of linear here. So I think it's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory, and this part was pretty simple for a lot of people. Um, Now this part did have a lot of information, and I think I remember that in the test that we've done that I did, people started to be a little bit like, oh, there's a lot of words, there's a lot of icons going on, and definitely could understand that. Yeah, shows you there, and then you have your go to the login system. Again, at that point, people could have just went throughout the app, but again, because it's limited, yeah, they just go through here. Boom, bam. All right, now you can get started. So yeah, just telling people that they can save that it's saved offline, because that was another concern people had. How you doing? All right. Basically went through this in the tutorial, but yeah, at this point you can get like really into the cities, and ideally in the actual app you can like kind of zoom with your fingers. So if you're going through the map, you can kind of zoom around like you would on Google Maps or anything like that. But yeah, you got your insights there, and if you want to load more, more will pop up there. If you want to go back, you went to the larger map, and that was because I realized that in the original design, I didn't really have a way for you to go back, when you're kind of scrolling around. Like you would just zoom in and out, but maybe not everybody could, for accessibility, maybe not everybody can do that. Maybe you didn't know you could, pinch or to do that and stuff like that. So I think this was just a more organic method of doing that. So yeah, you can select your insight, and it will tell you a little kind of like a preview here. And this is a huge iteration from what I had before, where you had to hold it and it will kind of pop up on the side. So instead here, you just select it, and it gives you a preview, and then you can tap that again, and it will go to the full insight. So yeah, a lot of people like that during the process as well. I think that's everything there. And close it, and it'll go back. And again, you can add it to your add it to your wish list, and it'll get added in there. Or you can add it to your itinerary. Bam, boom. All right, and then you can view more. So this is like the part that really killed people. It's like, whoa, this is too much. And I understand why. Like ideally, I would have left it so it's a limited number of insights, maybe rows or something like that, or maybe just free form like I had in the original design. Um, but yeah, it's a learning experience. So then you have filters, so you can, when you're searching for things, you can easily filter. So this is like what I had in the beginning, where you had like the filters at the bottom and at the top in the search and all that. But this was a more organic way for people to search. Like they were used to this sort of searching thing. And then had this type of search. Now I took this. This is very much inspired by another travel app called I think Culture Trip was the one I got it from. So when you started searching, it had it already gave you some suggestions on things to look for. Um, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So I wanted to include that here. But yeah, let me see. Oh yeah, your chats. So it just looks a lot better here. I definitely could have improved this. I had a hard time kind of figuring out a good way to make a chat mechanism, but it still has all the same things I was talking about before. Meeting locals, so you still have that same setup here. And you go to a local, you still have their page, and yeah, I think that's basically it there. So yeah, I'm honestly kind of still a little proud of this app. There's definitely a lot more I would do to improve it. I definitely would want to animate it and see how that looks out, and I would want to test it again. Um, but yeah, I think this was a nice little app, and I definitely understood a lot of people's feedback about the fact like the black art, the dark background, the orange kind of background is kind of throws people off. But um, so I would look at different ways to use those kind of this rugged feel, these rugged colors and aesthetics in a better way. But I didn't have too many actual like doing it was more like my instructors who were talking about it rather than actual people that I interviewed. So it's kind of like the people like it. But I think that's everything here. So yeah, go back to an article. Missing anything? Yeah, that's it. So yeah, hope you liked this and again learned something or saw something that you liked. It's cool for me to just go back through my stuff, see kind of my mindset and how I improved since then. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and see you tomorrow.